Hello my friends, Gene from Regular Guy Mountain Biking, and thank you so much for tuning into another video. So this time around, we're going to talk about the finished product, the finished framed Minnesota carbon kit that I got. If you haven't seen the earlier video, I'll link it to you above, and you can see the unboxing and what I got. And basically it was a video of, would you build a mountain bike if it was sent to you in a kit to save some money? Now, as promised, I was going to follow that video up with the actual finished product. So in this video, we're going to talk about how was the build process? How did it work? What was it like getting a kit sent to me to build? So we'll talk about that. We'll then talk about the finished product. So forget about the build process. How's the bike, right? Because you can buy this bike pre-built. So is this bike a good bike? We'll cover that. And then finally, I'll just wrap things up real quick on whether or not I would go and buy another bike kit and go through this process again. So sit down, chill out. Again, thanks for tuning in, and let's get to it. So the build process. How was it building this bike when it was sent to me in a kit? All right, I can't speak for all kits. I haven't actually seen a lot of bike companies sending bikes out as kits, but I can tell you that this particular one was a tad bit tough, and I'm obviously going to explain to you why. First things first, understand that the way this kit is sent to you is just all the pieces. Again, I urge you to watch the first video, but it's literally some dude going through a warehouse, just, taking parts off the shelf, oh, I need one of these, shove it in a grocery cart, wrapping it up and sending it my way, which I knew. So, no fault at all. But that also means, right, there's no instructions, but none. It's not like I don't know how to build a bike, but there's no instructions on how this should be assembled. And because we're gonna kind of compare this to I build my own bike buying my old parts. So there's no instructions on this, no videos, no nothing. So that did make it a bit tough because there were a couple areas during this build process that didn't go over too smooth. And I'm gonna cover those, I'm gonna cover them right now. So the first area that I did kind of have a tough time putting this bike together was the chain line. The chain line on this bike was not that great. Now, understand, as I mentioned on these things, framed was with me the entire way. Okay, so by no means do I want to knock framed. I actually like the company. I like their bikes. Wait for the final review of the bike because the bike is amazing. So I just want to make sure I'm putting everything in the right place. But I want to be fair to you, okay? The chain line was not good. Now, this came with a Shimano 10-speed cassette. And for me personally, that particular cassette, I think it was only maybe a 42. I mean, the lowest gear on that cassette was not going to be good enough for me on a fat bike. I'm not that strong. I'm going through snow and mud. I needed a little more gear. So I did put my tried and true box standard drivetrain on there, which gives me a much lower gear on the cassette. That's what I wanted to go with. So I will make sure I do the air quotes. I did not use the actual drivetrain that was sent to me with this bike. Again, I'm trying to be as fair as I can. That being said, even when I took a look at that, I mean, the chain was way the hell out there, man. So I had to try some different things. One thing I tried getting a different crank with a different offset ring, trying to see if I could move the front ring in and out a little bit to get that chain line. The problem with the chain line was that the chain line was too far bent when you went to the lowest gear. Remember, that's the highest gear on the cassette. When you went to that one, you were it was not good. It was great for the little ones, the little gears, the higher speed gears, but I don't need a high speed gear on a fat bike and I'm trying to go through snow. I'm praying for dear life even to be able to get through the snow. So I want that gear ratio for me. The chain line was off. What I ended up doing was, after trying a different crank, that didn't work, back and forth with framed, I did put the original crank back on again, and I had to mess around with some spacers. And though the cranks are not perfectly dead center, I have moved them over slightly to the driver's side, just a little bit, to make up for that chain line. So I was able to get the chain line in line, luckily. and it was a challenge. But I got it figured out. Chain line is good. So the next part that was a bit challenging with this bike build was the headset. This was kind of brutal. At first, I thought that the frame was ovalized, right, where the headset was going to kind of rattle back and forth. And that was because when you put the whole thing together, the bottom cup, the bearing race was too far into the frame. So it didn't meet nicely against the headset race that you mount onto the fork, right? The fork slides into the frame. It's got a little piece of metal that goes on the bottom of the bearing that squeezes onto the bearing and pushes into the frame, and that locks in. That's why when you go like this on the bars, the fork doesn't rattle back and forth. It's not rocket science over here, folks. But the problem was that the bearing would go in too deep so that the race didn't fit in. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it to work. And if you took a look at the way the bearing was in the frame, it looked like it would, jerk back and forth. I had my buddies take a look at this. I had my local bike shop take a look at this. My local bike shop, we tried different bearings. It was a pain. And when I talked to Framed, I couldn't seem to get the right headset. They didn't know exactly which one to use, which I felt was kind of odd. Okay, I will say that the drivetrain, the line, the chain line, whatever, but to not know which headset to use was, I didn't like that. So I took it upon myself to find it, and I did. I'll put a link to the right one in the description. This is the headset that you should be using with this frame. It's perfect. It's a bit taller on the bottom bearing. It's taller. Fits in the bottom perfect. I mean, I was even 3D printing parts to try to make this whole thing fit right. It just wasn't going to work. I found the right one, link in the bottom, worked out perfect. It's solid now. It is exactly the way it's supposed to be. But that was, wow, that was really a challenge. I didn't enjoy that much at all, but I did finally get that to work just fine. So now the last part that made the build kind of tough was the fact that there was this discrepancy with parts, right? I couldn't say, hey, what's up with this headset? And they couldn't just say, this is the one, just order it. That was kind of odd to me. I would think that would have been more well known, because where this also goes is with the wheels, the rims specifically. The rims that are on this bike are not the same ones that are on the full build. So when I asked if these rims were going to be tubeless, the answer was yes. But again, the problem was, I think that the answer was focused towards the other rims that come on the bike that's pre-built. So luckily, Jason at Sussex Bike Shop, the guy's awesome. What he did was he's so good with the tape wrapping. He wrapped the tape on perfectly to build the wall up just enough so that I could get these are tubeless tires. The tubeless tires locked into the bead. It's tubeless. There's no tubes in these. It's all tubeless with orange, like it's an orange. I'll put a link to it. An orange winter mixed sealant to work better in colder temperatures. Again, link in the description. Again, that was a little bit of a bugger. I was expecting the exact same parts. Like if you buy the bike built, there's the parts. If you buy that bike as a kit, you just get those parts not built. So there you go. That's why the build was tough. Let's start getting to some good positive things right now, because there's plenty of them, and I want to get to them now. Let's start getting to the glass half full, right? The sunrise, everybody's happy. Let's talk about some good things. There are plenty of good things. The bike. The bike is beautiful. It's an amazing fat bike. It's absolutely gorgeous. In fact, I was having some problems. Framed totally cool. Every time I sent an email, I got a response. No downplay on Framed. But at some point, my Framed rep basically said, Gene, look, if you just want to return the whole thing, we'll just give you even, don't worry about it. It's not going well. We'll give you all your money back. And I said, no, I don't want my money back. I want this bike because this bike is so freaking awesome. So I'm saying this because the bike itself was worth all the work I went through. It's got a carbon fork, okay? Beautiful carbon frame. I like the way it's actually got this nice dip over here, because when I'm out there mountain biking in the cold, I usually have like bigger, baggier pants. It makes it easier to get on. Now that I got the headset worked out, it's tight. I love it. I love the bike. Some things I did special for me on this build was I put my own grips on it. I like the extra large Pacific Northwest grips. I did use the box drivetrain. I like the box drivetrain. I also did this. This bike does not have internal routing for a dropper seat post. So what I did, and I've done this with other builds, is I used the front derailleur routing, because this bike is capable of putting a front derailleur on it if you wanted to. I have zero intention of ever doing that. So what I did was I used the bosses for that, and I got a Pacific Northwest external routing dropper seat post and used that one instead. Specifically, I got their Coast one because the Coast model has the suspension inside of the post. It's a dropper. I've done reviews on this before, okay? It's a dropper with about maybe a half an inch of cush in it. It just takes the edge off because, you know, this is a hardtail. So even though, you know, you do get some suspension out of these big tires, not enough for a guy with a bad back, this post is just a godsend. So again, I went with the Coast dropper, and, you know, big surprise, I've got my Catalyst Innovation pedals on here. And that's the other reason why I wanted to go with the kit, because I do like to put some parts on it that I specifically like. So I was able to do that. I've only ridden it a little bit. Part of it was because I had some issues getting it done. I'll be out with it more in the winter, but this has been such a big delay since when I've got the kit and when I've built the bike that I wanted to get this out. But as far as my initial riding, awesome. The only thing I will probably eventually do is I will probably get the suspension fork. That's simply because of me and my back. I do need a little bit more cush up front. Not because there's anything wrong with this fork. A lot of people would actually go out of their way to get this fork, but for me to make it a little bit more comfortable. But the bike is just, it's a beautiful bike. I definitely recommend the bike. Okay folks, time to put a bow on this video and wrap things up. Would I buy a bike kit again? And no. Personally, the reason why I bought the kit was to save some money. And from what I had to go through, it wasn't worth the money I saved. It wasn't a drastic amount of money, but it was enough for me to give it a try. I would only go through a kit again if like the deal was just crazy good. Maybe some crazy Black Friday deal where someone was doing something and it was just like, how could you not do this deal? Because I know how to build a bike. People that don't know how to build bikes, don't have the tools to build bikes, would not get the kit because it's not attractive to them. But if you do have the tools and the knowledge to build a bike, a kit might be the way to go if the price is right. I wouldn't do it again. The thing is this, when you buy a bike online, and I've bought bikes from and worked with bikes online, they build the bike, right? They test the bike out. Everything works, okay? Then they take it apart a little bit and ship it to you, so you have a few things to build to put the bike together. In fact, I've actually got a video, you can take a look at it, on how you can build one of their bikes with like 2 tools. I'll give you a link. So those bikes have already been built already. I like the fact that if I'm going to do a bike build, and I've got multiple bike builds that you can see, right? I got the pumpkin bike, you can take a look at that one. I've got a tall boy video coming out. I've got another one coming out over here in the spring that I'll show you in a little while. Anyway, when I build a bike on my own, I buy all the parts that I want. I know they're going to work because I've done the research. I know that this is the right bottom bracket to fit on this particular bike, and this is the right headset to put on this particular bike. I know, I picked it all out. This, you would also think that would be the case, but I had some issues, and I didn't like that. The issues weren't worth the money I saved. So would I buy a kit again? Probably not. Would I build a bike from scratch? Hell yeah, I love doing it, and I recommend you doing it as well. Do I like this bike, and will I get rid of it? Nope, I love it. I will not get rid of it. This is exactly what I wanted as a fat bike. I will continue to support and recommend Framed as a company and their bikes, because their bikes are awesome. The kit just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. What are your thoughts? Have you gotten a kit before and had good success, bad success? What's it like? I'd love to know. Maybe I just, maybe I just had a lemon and oh well, life goes on. I always love your feedback. That's why I do these videos. I want to hear from you, so give me some comments down below. Until then, keep the party on the pedals, my friends. It's always great doing these videos for you, and I will catch you later.